All right, today I have two of my friends with me. We're going to talk about all things Everest. Let me introduce you to Dr. John Kedrowski. He is one of these people that you're like, really, how many cool things can you be doing? So he's a guide, an author, a motivational speaker. He teaches courses at the university. He takes people skiing. He takes people up Mount Everest. Like all the things that you would want to do, this is your human. So that's Dr. John. And then we have my friend Meghan Buchanan. Hi, Meg. Yes. So Megan's also a motivational speaker. She is going for the Grand Slam, which I'll let her tell you what that is. We met on Everest back in 2021, so we're besties now because of that.
We are.
Yep, and she's going to also be writing a book at some point. And I'm saying that so that she's held accountable, and it happens.
Fabulous, yes.
So
yes.
yay, awesome. So and these are some of John's books, guide books in Colorado, and then Sleeping on the Summits, right here. You can buy these on
my website, johnkedrowski.com. Actually, drjohnsadventures.com.
Dr.
Yeah,
John's
it's
Adventures.
the best place to get them, but
Perfect.
the Sleeping on the Summits was kind of the start of this madness, the passion for the mountains. So the 14ers in Colorado, so you have 58 of them, and people spend a lot of time hiking the 14ers.
So we had a conversation yesterday about how many there were.
I think it's 56.
Someone was 54, someone was 56, and I was 58.
You win.
So
Yeah,
I
you
win.
You win.
I win.
58 named mountains. Yeah.
I love it. And they're beautiful, if anybody cares, like pictures and everything. So if you are in Colorado, these are what you want. But yay. All right, so John's heading to Everest this spring again.
Yeah,
with another
going back
client.
again, guiding another client. That's kind of my style now, is one-on-one. So people contact me after last year, and then in 2019, I also guided a client to the summit from the north side.
Okay.
So I've got a new client that I'm training. Typically, people I work with, I train them for 2 years at a minimum usually,
Okay.
and that just allows them to do a lot of mountains. And sometimes we target the 7 summits. Sometimes we target a list that they maybe are passionate about, or I do mountains that are more relatable to Everest and conditions. So like Mount Rainier is a good one, because you get crampons, ice axe, crevasses, glacier travel, roped up travel. So you actually get more skills than you would maybe even need on Everest, because as you guys know, on Everest you have to learn fixed ropes and you got to learn how to navigate the ladders.
Yeah.
So then I have a crash course on ladders where we go and set up ladders, like in my dad's yard,
That's
or my
awesome.
brother's yard, because both my brother and my dad build homes in the Vail Valley, so I have access to lots of ladders. So we'll set up ladder courses and build rope systems so that the client doesn't fear doing those things. And you guys probably witnessed this. I mean, you get there and some people have never even crossed a ladder before. So most teams set up ladders, and that's good. And then you get to practice before you go up.
Right,
Could
right.
you have imagined going somewhere where you could build these systems, understand how they work, and practice them on a daily basis? And so that's what I did for my last client, in a situation where he could come 3 days a week after we had the course set up in the snow in the winter and practice on his own.
That's
And not have to
awesome.
fear it.
It's so important to actually gain the skills before you go. And then if it's one thing, if you have all other skills, under control, and then the last thing maybe learning ladders, or the last thing is a, vertical jumar, or you can learn it there. But what's really frightening, as we all know, is when you go there and you're now in base camp in the lower Khumbu, and you're with people who have never even put crampons on.
Yeah, no.
That's where it gets frightening.
Yeah.
So for everyone who is interested in doing Everest, do the work to get the skills and earn your spot on the mountain. So that's amazing that you can take someone for 2 years and really turn them into that Everest athlete.
Yeah, we drill every little
it's awesome.
detail. So it's like, all right, we're gonna go climb this mountain, and I kind of created college level coursework for the entire thing. So it was like, winter camping 101, rope work 101, rappelling 101. I mean, like all these different courses, and we go out and practice them day after day, and then supplement that with actual mountains. And if someone has a dream of doing the 7 summits like you guys have done, or the second 7 summits, then you can actually have the ability to, like, hey, we even went to Aconcagua with my last client, or I supplement, like I'm going to take him to Ecuador and see if his fitness is at a good level.
Yeah.
So we'll go to Ecuador and we'll do 4 volcanoes in 10 days. So we're going up and down, 1 rest day, up and down, 1 rest day. And that mixes with the rigors of Everest. Like, okay, if you go to Camp 1, you go to Camp 2, you touch Camp 3, you got to go days in a row. Same thing on your summit push, days in a row. And then I like to kind of add upper level type fitness stuff too. So, you know, when I took him to Aconcagua, we did it in 7 days instead of 21 days, like most people do. And then that lets me know that he's strong enough, for example, on Everest to just skip Camp 1. We don't even have to stay there.
Yeah.
So a lot of those, I like one-on-one allows me to do that, to customize somebody's experience climbing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I will say I'm a gymnast, so I had the background of walking on balance beams, right? So
There you
like
go,
balance
yeah.
beams a
So
little bit like a ladder.
I'm sure, yeah, you had the ability
You just knew like
do the
how to like
balancing and
take
stuff,
away
yeah.
what's not below you. But the one thing is I brought 2 pairs of crampons, and 1 pair I would still slide through the opening, right? Because my feet were too small.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the
Oh,
second
scary.
pair, I was
Yeah.
like, wow, I didn't even think about this.
Yeah.
And the second pair, how the crampons were angled, it was like perfect. Like you'd step on each of the little rungs. And so
Yeah.
that's a huge advantage to be able to go train with you and make sure like, dude, does this
Yeah.
work?
Well, my problem is I'm size 12, right? Like
Yeah.
big feet. So mine crampons, I actually could put my arch right over the middle and do that technique. Or I'd have to step a certain way so that my heels wouldn't catch
On the
on
back
the back
side.
of the rung. So,
Yeah.
but even dialing that in and practicing with various ladders, you know, we should get like Warner as a sponsor, you know. So
Well, that all
it's-
comes down to knowing
but-
your gear, and that's part
Yeah.
of being prepared too. Like you've done
Yeah.
enough training that by the time you get to the big mountain, you know your gear and you know it's going to work. And I think that's something that a lot of people also forget.
Yeah, it makes it safer, makes it more efficient.
Yeah.
Like with Mike last year, I even broke it down. Like, so then we would go out and set up a fixed rope course for him and practice transitions on anchors. And in his Alti mitts, he
Yes.
learned how to do the Jumar without
Yeah,
having
yeah.
to take his glove off.
Correct.
And he got to the point where, and he would annoy people on like a flight when he'd fly around to do things, but he would practice, have the Jumar in his hand and practice with the mitten. And he got so good that he was so fast that even when I had a Sherpa with him, a DC Sherpa wasn't quick enough to do Mike's Jumar for him.
That's
Mike was just
amazing.
already up and off. And when you think about it, let's say from Camp 2 to Camp 3 even, just going up to Camp 3, let's say the average person takes 5 hours to get up there. And you've got, let's say, 40 transitions of rope and anchor. And I'm just throwing 40 as an arbitrary number.
Right.
And you get behind somebody that, let's say, takes 2 minutes. And 2 minutes is a long time, but 2 minutes to do their transition on an anchor.
Especially in that spot
That's
because the
40
sun bakes you.
40 anchors times
Yeah.
that, 40 anchors times
2 minutes,
2
right.
minutes is 80 minutes. Just
Yeah.
imagine if you could cut it down to 15 seconds an anchor. Then all that time adds up, even on summit day, as you guys know. So, and then that leads to safety. So that's sort of my style of teaching people climbing,
Well, you need
is
to-
the
yeah.
efficiency, because it leads to safety. It leads to being a better climber. It leads to all different things that make a difference out there.
And I know for me, like when I decided to kind of transition from the hiker into a mountaineer, I was like, okay, now I really have to start learning skills. I need to be learning from people in ice climbing and rock climbing and learning everything I can. I always feel like I want to earn my spot. I don't want anyone to be like, what's she doing on the mountain? But that was a big part of it. I'm like, I need to learn this. Don't do it for me. Which I do know a lot of Sherpa, they just do it for you because you're so slow. Everyone's so slow. They're just used to it. But I'm like, no, I got to learn this. But so I'd sit at my office pre-COVID, and I'd have like ropes tied to, drawers or different things and be sitting at meetings, and
there
I'm
you go.
practicing all my knots. I'm practicing all my ropes. And I
Yeah.
just sit there and practice till it
And
was
the
like
same goes for
secondhand.
rappelling
Yeah.
too, is like
Yeah.
getting, they're getting comfortable enough to where you're not, we're all different in terms of our fear of heights. I admit sometimes I'm scared of certain heights more than others. And that can affect your ability out there. But then if you learn the muscle memory of, with the mittens on, let's say with the figure 8, just flipping it, clipping it, and going. And you can be there and somebody's fiddling around with it for 3-4 minutes, and that can hold up everybody. And that was the same thing with Mike. I trained him to just be able to quickly transition, boom, double check it, all right, go. And he was so confident in that. And that's the type of people I like working with, because then it makes the whole experience stress-free, more fun.
Yeah.
You move quickly up and down the mountain, and a big group, nothing against big groups, but big groups can be slower and more more risk management involved. So
I
prefer
learned
the smaller.
that lesson. So that's where I met Jen in 2021, and I'd been on the mountain for 7 weeks, but I was in a big group. Everyone was extremely skilled. Like everyone was super fit and belonged there. But because we had 2 cyclones go in, the weather windows were really short and we had to wait. And finally one was going to open up the end of the season. And we were ready for summit bid after being on the mountain for 7 weeks. And then all of our Sherpa got COVID and everyone ordered off the mountain and the shot was gone. And so this year when I went back, I did a private, same mountaineering company who I love. And it was one of our guides from last year in the group, but I'm like, oh no, I want to be, when there's no friends on a powder day, like I want to be able to go.
Exactly. Then your decisions are, and that's why the one-on-one model is the best in my opinion.
I think
it
so.
costs more, but like, because then your decision making is only you get to do what you desire.
Yeah, but it costs more. But in Megan's, right? Like you might have to go twice. Okay, then it doesn't cost more.
That costs
because it's not just the financials; it's the time.
Yeah, the time,
the training and being ready, and
that's
all
what's
the
good
pieces.
about, like, let's say going to Aconcagua, and if you're acclimated to certain heights and you can go and do it in 7 days. A lot of people don't have the extra time. They don't have 2 more weeks.
Right.
You know, my client last season got on the plane and ironically was sitting next to somebody that went with Elite Expeditions that did their Aconcagua trip, and some of the people on Elite Expeditions didn't summit for 21 days, and the guy was like, oh my gosh, I was on the mountain for 21 days, and my client kind of quietly sat next to him and smiled and just said, well, I did it in 7, you know?
Did you, Jen, so we also then saw each other down in Antarctica, and that place was crazy because I was doing the last degree ski to the South Pole and then Mount Vinson. And the ski, we were with a group. It ended up being 7 days. It should have been like 4 or 5. But then on Vinson, it was just me, Bulks, and our guide Tendi. Yeah. And we were able, since we weren't in a group, normally it's like 5 to 6 days. We did it in 57 hours.
Yeah.
We just went. Mm-hmm. Did you, but we were in Antarctica for almost a month.
I know.
Because of the waiting and the
logistics.
Now you were doing the tallest and the second tallest peak.
Yep.
Now, how long were you there? Because did you fly out when we flew out? Were you there a month?
Almost, yeah.
Because COVID came through, there were no flights.
December 18 till January 9.
Oh.
Yeah. And we did the mountains fast because we were acclimatized. And so, I mean, we were given 2 weeks to do Tyree. Yeah. And when we landed, the weather window was right then.
Oh, no.
So we did it we just went up and did it. And then we thought, now we're going to have the next, 12 days to just play in this, like, wonderland and ski because we brought our skis.
That's cool.
And then they, headquarters called us and said, there's a storm coming in. If we don't get you, we might not be able to get you for 14 days, which would have put me on a whole different flight home. I'm we're done. We're going. We're going to take the weather while we have it. And that's what the guides wanted to do too. Because I'm like, what do you guys want to do? And they said this. But, okay, after we've done these trips a handful of times, what is your favorite thing to bring to base camp that isn't a normal thing that you would bring?
Oh, okay. So, I have them bring wine in, which is not a surprise for me.
No surprise.
No,
every restaurant we pick at is depends on the wine menu whether we're going to eat there or not.
As for me, I will say that there's an amazing vineyard Summit Apart that helped sponsor my Everest climb last year. I did bring a baby bottle all the way to the top and summit. I do it for all my climbs, but I am not sitting at base camp drink all the time. But this year they did bring in. Because they'll have special days at base camp. They'll, here's beer. I am gluten free. I can't drink beer. So I'm like, where's my wine? So I did have them. They brought wine in, which is really a fabulous thing. But there's all these little tiny things that you learn of comfort. So there's these little tiny dehydrated towels that I actually learned from a friend on Vincent that a little bit of water, and then you can have a hot towel in the morning that are just these tiny little comforts that are so lovely. But yeah, I'd say the non-expected thing to base camp is definitely a little wine once in a while. And then of course you bring, your laptop or whatever so you can write. Mm-hmm. And then music. I bring a little Bluetooth to play music, do your stretching, your yoga, just chill out. And that's, I think, probably my favorite things.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I bring my yoga mat.
Yeah.
I do a lot of that movement. And just certain snacks that you like go to Costco, and any of the snacks you can get at Costco that are different than stuff you would buy in the markets in Nepal, right?
Yes,
like,
yes.
You know, certain things, even just like American M&Ms, American like snacks, and those types of things I like bringing.
I'm the Haribo gummy bear person.
Oh no, I'm a gummy bear. But I'm like so fussy that I will literally go through. Well, I'll buy like 3 bags of the gummy bears here, and then I'll go through them and I'll take out all the red and white ones, and that's all I fly over to Nepal with, because I'm like, if I'm gonna be suffering, I'm gonna make sure I get my favorite colors. So I pull out all the red and whites. But yeah.
And this year too, from learning last year about how my body does during the rotations, I would just drop so much weight and I couldn't keep it on. So I actually brought extra protein powder. I brought this like almond, vanilla, peanut butter type stuff that I was just eating it by the spoonfuls. And I think that's another great thing if you're serious about doing the mountain, is a lot of people go over and do like the 3 peaks first, or just something, just be in altitude. And know how your body reacts so that you can bring like extra. I just needed to eat I was eating more than like any guy and still dropping more than anybody, because at that higher above about 23K, my body is just.
Do you bring your skis to Everest?
I have in the past.
Okay.
I didn't last season. The spring season isn't really the ski season in Nepal, and that's why,
right.
The last couple of times I have not. That's one of my goals, is to actually, right now, Andres is there, the Polish ski mountaineer, because he did K2 a few years back. He's going to ski Everest this fall, and he's there. And even now they're talking about how the lack of snow is kind of going to make it tough. And so we're seeing with the climate changing, there's a lot of issues with being able to ski on a lot of these peaks that are different than it used to be.
Right.
And that's kind of happening across the board. Even in Colorado, like we're getting less snow. It's really windy in the winter. There's, May and June are actually the best time to ski off peaks in Colorado, because the wind doesn't blow the snow away. So you see that same phenomenon. Everest is just a big pile of big rock that's scoured of clean for the most part, and even when it snows. So we'll be interested to see like what he does on Everest skiing this season. And then there's a few ski mountaineers on Manaslu, which is perfect this time of year in the fall. And I climbed Manaslu in 2019 without oxygen and skied, but I didn't ski from the summit, but I skied part of the mountain that season. But the conditions are changing a lot for the skiability of a lot of these peaks, which makes it really challenging. Yeah, which is a bummer.
B when we were on Everest last year, and the 2 cyclones that went through, and it was crazy. Yeah. And it was pretty cold. Then this year, it was night and day.
Totally different,
so warm. And we used to, I was talking about this before, you used to, leave base camp at 2 a.m. or whatever, go through the Khumbu icefall. It would be solid, frozen. This year, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., the water's flowing through.
Ooh.
And the crevasses opened up really big. And there were some jumps where, and I've got long legs, I was like, and Mike, like Naren would have to we go on 1, 2, 3, and he'd pull me while I leaped over. And I remember just thinking, I am not going to tell my mom about that one. She will not be. It's getting extreme.
Yeah.
And for people who don't believe in climate change, they need to go to the extreme parts of the earth, because it is undeniable what is happening.
Yeah, and you can see the in the landscape with physical geography. Yeah. So that we, last December took students from Colorado Mountain College. We had 6 students and took them up like Imja Valley, Gokyo Valley, Khumbu Valley, but all of the evidence is visible, especially just from the glacier standpoint. Like if you were to hike up next to the Khumbu Glacier, Lobuche to Gorkshep to base camp, and go up in Kalpatar, which I think both of you have, and you look down on the Khumbu Glacier, it's melting away into a deeper trough, and the scars on the landscape are more prominent, and you can visibly see it. Wow. And my first trip to Nepal was in 2008, so in 15 years of just going there, I visibly have seen how they're shrinking. They're really shrinking drastically. Yeah. And it's really unfortunate. And it'll be interesting to see how that continues to change the Everest season, like whether it's better or worse. It seems like it's making it more treacherous.
There's going to be things that people aren't going to be able to do anymore. And so, like you mentioned, so I'm about to finish the Explorers Grand Slam,
which is
7 summits, the tallest peak on every continent, and then it's the last degree ski to the North and South Pole, which is 60 nautical miles, about 70 miles. You get dropped and you sled everything you go. South Pole to North Pole, that creature is dissipating, because it's all over ocean. There's no land.
Yeah,
And
so the ice cap is melting
correct.
away, and
Correct.
are you planning on going soon? then?
They keep
well,
trying, they
they've
keep
been-
canceling it.
They've been closed.
Really? They
Yes.
keep canceling it
So it
because
was
there's too much
closed
ice that's
because
just...
of COVID.
Okay.
But
cool.
Russia
now,
runs it.
The Russians
okay.
were running the logistics, so they don't know. Anyway, Norwegians are going to try to do it this year.
Uh-huh.
We really want to go, but every year that goes by, that chance is slipping away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to then work on the Adventures Grand Slam, then is the longer North and South Pole from the coast. I don't know if you can do that for the North Pole anymore.
Yeah, anymore, yeah.
No. So unless I'll bring I guess I'll have a sled and a kayak.
You have to swim.
I'm going to have to kayak it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so we have a
So-
lot of challenges
Yeah.
for all of these, adventures, right? Not just physical, geography, weather, climate, but political, right?
Yes.
With our growing populations,
Yes.
putting pressures on, just the inability for people to get along, right? The war in Russia.
Yeah, those who want to
issues
do
in
Elbrus in Russia.
yeah,
Good luck
Afghanistan and
for a while
Pakistan,
there.
and
Yeah.
So,
it is.
mhm.
It is extreme. So these adventures that we're doing and these goals that we have, you're right. It really ties in so many things that are happening around our world. That then you know how you go, and we all have buddies now from different countries, and it is this time to catch up and find out what's going on in your country. But we're all related. We can all relate to it in the same way.
Oh, it's crazy.
I know.
What do you miss most when you're when you come home? Like, what's your first thing? Like,
Well, usually because the Everest season ends by May,
right.
This year a lot of people were home. I mean, you got home. When did you get home?
Oh my gosh, so early.
Yeah.
Compared to,
And-
I summited May 12th.
I feel like
then,
it was a false
Yeah.
sense of security for people that were like, oh, Everest is easy. And it's like, well, no, it's not. But it makes it look easy if you get to come home early like that because of what we had to go through.
Yeah.
the year before with Mike. And
Yeah.
on some of my other years, I've had summits on like the 23rd and the 26th.
Yeah.
But that being said, you get home mid-May, end of May, and in our mountain communities here, things are starting to green up.
Yep.
So I love that the most, like just how green it feels and looks. And then to be able to just jump on my mountain bike and go for a mountain bike ride and feel that fresh air and just be home. Like that's probably my favorite thing is just getting out in the home mountains.
I go
Yeah.
straight for a big cheeseburger.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just
and,
love,
and the local food.
Yeah.
So like, barbecue
Yeah.
something or Mexican food actually is
Oh,
probably the
there
biggest
you
thing.
go.
Right.
Right.
Because they attempted to make Mexican food in our camp, and it still tasted like dalbat.
Yeah, of
was
course
like
it did.
dalbat fajitas with chicken, but it tasted like that. It didn't taste like real Mexican food. So I think the Mexican food is the biggest thing.
And that's the thing that I'm just
Yeah.
going to say right now so we have it on camera. Bringing spices and like Tabasco sauces and little things like that with you on these climbs, such a game changer because if
Yeah.
you eat rice every single day,
Yeah.
like those little things matter.
Good authentic salsa, I love barbecue sauce on
Yeah.
certain things.
Yes.
So like the right kind of barbecue sauce. You try to buy that like American Garden brand in Nepal and it's just not good.
No.
So you're bringing certain sauces. You're so
Yeah.
right about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It helps with
yeah.
the food for sure.
That's
Not
true.
to say I don't love dalbat, but after a while you're like, I need a different flavor.
Right.
I need a different taste. It amazes me that the Sherpas eat the same thing.
Well, it makes you
every
realize
meal.
like how lucky we are.
Yeah, yeah. the
Like I'm like,
variety
I
that
want
we get.
Chinese today, I want Thai today, I want
Yeah.
sushi today, I want whatever, and
It's either like we're just like divas with food, or maybe we're not. I love different foods.
I can eat the same thing over and over again. I don't care.
Yeah, I
But-
can
but,
as
yeah.
well if it's
Yeah.
good, but I just
Yeah.
think like after 25 days in a row of rice and dalbat, I'm
Oh.
like, I need to have some different flavors.
Oh, I don't know who your chefs are, but all right.
well, yeah, you have like full-on chefs at your
I know.
base camps.
That's
So when you're
great.
interviewing people to climb with, how they feed you is something to consider.
Yeah.
It's something very important to
Yeah.
consider, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But everyone goes through the same tea houses in the beginning, though,
Pretty
so you
much,
get
yeah.
pretty used to especially being gluten-free. If you have any dietary restrictions, you're like, there are 3 things I can eat, and that's what you're eating for 11 days. But it's all good, It's part of the bigger picture.
Gluten-free momos.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
Gotta figure
love
out how to make
momos.
that.
Oh my gosh, no, a lot of French fries,
Yeah.
That's all right with it. It was good, but
Where's a mountain that you want to climb that you haven't climbed yet?
Well, I need to go to Vincent.
Oh, you
Yeah,
do?
because I've done all the 7 summits except for Vincent, and I want to ski Vincent. And when you look at a project like Sleeping on the Summits, I mean that's being on 14ers consistently, and having been to Nepal 13 times now since 2008, I can go back to Nepal and basically walk in and not have to acclimatize to about 20,000 feet now, just from my body being used to these heights all the time, whether it's going to Ecuador, going to Aconcagua. I've got it at Aconcagua 3 times, Denali a few times. So these heights I'm pretty used to, and I'm sure as you guys have gone through your journey, your body has understood heights to a certain level as well, so that there's less acclimatizing involved. So when I look at a mountain like Vinson, I want to go ski it, and I think it probably just a quick go up and down it once you get there, because it's only 16,000 feet.
Right. It
So,
presents
yeah.
a little higher,
Yeah,
just because of where it is
the
location.
centrifugal force of the
It's
earth.
a mini Denali.
Totally.
It's like a little,
That's what they say,
little
yeah.
sampler. Denali
But either way, I want to
sampler.
go and go ski it. And so the client I'm taking to Everest this year, same thing. He's on the 7 Summits track, so we'll probably target 2024 and go down and ski it together.
Oh, cool.
Which would be great to finish the 7 Summits, basically.
Yeah.
Which would be like, for me, I never really set out to do the 7 Summits. I just kind of was like, well, I got hired to guide this, or I got hired to guide this, or I went and climbed this, you know. So it's been an 18-year journey. Like, I did Everest in 2005.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so whenever I finish, 2024, it'll be like 19 years to finish the 7 Summits. So, like, it's kind of funny. I always joke around with certain friends about this, but like, you get people that are out doing FKTs, right?
Oh, I know.
Fastest known times, or like fastest to do the 7 Summits, or fastest to do whatever. I joke around and say, well, I'm going to do the SKT, the slowest known time for the 7 Summits, 20 years. Maybe.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I think for a lot of us too, it started. We've talked about many times. Like, I had hiked my whole life. Like, it was kind of my therapy when I was a kid, and something I was just naturally good at. And I loved it with my father, time with him. And, growing up in Colorado, 14ers, like, that was, we do that all the time. First time I did Kilimanjaro, I was 29. My dad was 65. It was just something that we loved together. I had no vision of doing the 7 Summits then. And then I was like, oh, Machu Picchu. Oh, let's do Mount Fuji. So it was like the cute stuff, and it was fun. It was travel. And, but it wasn't until I completely shattered my femur skiing back Bowls of Vale, and almost died, and woke up with a huge titanium rod, and they're like, you'll have a cane or wheelchair the rest of your life. Where I was like, no, it's not going to be my life. And I was so focused in recovery on what I wanted to do when I was walking and running again. And it was 2 years of horrendous recovery, but I was like, I'm going to go and climb Kilimanjaro again, and I'm going to do Everest Base Camp again. These are what I'm going to do. And when I went back and did those, it was so easy because I was mentally so much stronger, and my tolerance for pain was so much higher, that is when I'm like, oh, I want to do something higher. And so then I decided on Aconcagua, and it wasn't until then, I think I did Aconcagua like in 2016 maybe, and then that's when it first occurred to me, oh, I could do more. So it's going to end up being, for me, like a long journey as well. To get through
Yeah,
there.
and when you're up on a summit, you're always like, what's next, right?
Yeah.
Oh, always.
And you see all these other mountains. I mean, that's,
Always.
for me, how I got started,
So
like 8 years old, up on Mount of the Holy Cross with my mom and dad, and like, you see all these other mountains, and then you learn in grade school, like, what's the highest mountain in the world? Every kid knows what it is.
Yeah.
And so then, then that just sets you off.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you get up on a peak, you're like,
no.
well, I want to do that one, I want to do that one,
And now I'm like interested in the unclimbed peaks.
Yeah.
Right? The ones that haven't been done before.
Totally, yeah.
And
there's thousands of them.
Thousands of them. And I love the mountains that, as I've been doing it, I like the ones that don't have the Jumars. I like the ones that have less crowds and just are quieter.
Yeah, and just real mountaineering skills.
Yes.
Yeah.
An ice axe is all you need.
Yeah,
and if you think about the terrain even on Everest, like, you could technically climb Everest without any ropes.
Right.
It's very similar to a lot of the mountains in the United States that aren't as high, but like, if you have to go out in the winter conditions and you're using an ice axe, you're using crampons, you may be tied to a partner, or on sections you just learn how to climb without rope. You're gonna find that your skills are competent enough to not have to do this on a rope.
I think what you're talking about, Jen, is like it's because yes, we have these goals that we want to do. And so that's part of it. You have a mission and you're very focused on it. But then you're talking about, like, it's also great. We have a joy and a love for it. It's about connecting back with nature and actually just being a part of it and not having the crowds. And
You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
Just
less
actually
people-y.
connecting.
The mountains feel people-y lately.
Yeah. Well, the popular ones, for some reason, and it's, because humans like to be with humans.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know for me personally, like, yeah, at times I'm on some of the crowded mountains because that's the job. But if I have a choice, kind of like with what I did last week, I went out and did a multi-day traverse, you know, and did like 8 peaks and saw like nobody for a couple of days.
Wow.
And there's mountains that you can still do that on, and that solitude and that self-reliance is what really I love the most.
Yeah,
you know?
that's awesome.
So, and I can understand that for you doing the second 7 summits, that's the desire, because it's similar to the 14er effect. In Colorado, we have 14ers. There's 58 of them, but then there's 584 13ers.
Wow.
And you can be on a 13,000 foot peak, which I love doing. I've done about half of them now. And standing there, and it's only 50 feet lower than a 14er, some of the higher ones. And you look across a valley on a ridge line, and there's 800 people going up Beardstadt. And you're over here on Square Top, and there's 2 people with you. And
that's awesome.
You're like, this is awesome because I have my solitude wilderness experience.
Yeah.
And it's like that in any part of the world where you have the popular peak and then the one that people, it's a little lower. Well, no big deal. It's more rewarding probably to climb that.
Yeah, I'm in for those.
Yeah.
So after what do you, after the second highest peaks, what's?
I know, I keep getting asked.
How about let's do the first and second beaches on every.
I know, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, I'm up for like figuring out the coolest beaches in the world and documenting those. No, I don't know. I think that's kind of the fun of it. I think what happens when you get to an environment, like at first when I went down to Antarctica, I'm like, I'm going to take this in as much as I can because I'm never going to come back. And then you fly over from Tyree back and you see these ranges that are like fantastic for skiing or pristine, and I'm like, well, maybe I'd come back and do some of these unclimbed peaks down here. Or when I was in Africa, I've heard about the Moon Mountains. I want to maybe go check out the Moon Mountain. I don't know, just fun things.
So much to go do.
Yeah, like I want to go ski in Morocco.
Yes.
Right?
Okay, like I just saw a video of Morocco.
Place to go ski, you know, but like it's sort of they've got 13,000 foot peaks and in the Atlas Mountains, and you know, February, March, April-ish is about the time where they do get some snow, and not every winter they get snow, but like a good amount of it. But you can go ski there.
Yeah.
So just stuff like that, like real exotic experiences that, you know. Get a little bit of type 2 fun, but then.
And where it started for me too is I went places to go travel to another country and learn something about it too. So that's a big draw for me as well, is I want to learn other cultures and see other places. But you're right, Antarctica, I knew when I was there, I'm like, I'm coming back here. It is a really amazing place because you're flying. It's so large and it's so vast, and you're taking all these flights, logistics to get places, and you're just flying over, and all you can think is like, no person or animal has ever been there or there or there or there. And it's just, I think it probably calls to our you know, that little kid and the discovery and wander.
Explore and
all of us. Yeah. It's I'm excited for you to go. I didn't know oh man, it's really cool.
I love it.
Yeah. It's good.
And other places too, like New Zealand. I haven't visited New Zealand.
I haven't either. It's on my list.
There's so many countries.
Yeah.
And there's something like the Snow Leopard Mountains. Have you heard about these?
Where's that?
There's like in the Kyrgyzstans, all those over there, right?
Okay.
But someone was telling me about those.
I climbed in Kyrgyzstan in 2006, Peak Lenin.
Okay.
So it's, you know, kind of up near the...
Was it fun?
Yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, those mountains are huge. They're kind of, you have like the Tian Shan and the... and there's like a whole set of mountains up in that area. It's kind of like if you extended further north of K2. Okay. And it's sort of along the China and then all those, you know, Kazakhstan and Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. Yep. And there's huge mountains there, all 5,000-6,000 meter peaks, 7,000 meter peaks. Yeah. So there's more to explore there too.
I love peaks. I love mountains.
I'm sure my work right now would like me to be saying, I need to work more though. Not be going. I'm sure. Sorry about that work. I try.
What's one of your favorite memories from Everest?
I would say probably last year was pretty awesome after all the snow cleared and some of the sunsets, like in Camp 2. And then, you know, the avalanches that came down because the amount of snow, but the snow conditions were actually awesome to climb because it covered up all the ice. Right. So it made it easier. Right. You know? And then, I mean, one of my other big memories is like the earthquake. I mean, I was in the earthquake in 2015 in base camp when it all happened. Oh, wow. Because I was on an Everest and Lhotse permit that year. And just the way the country bonded together, and you know, you don't want to see tragedy that happens, but just the amount of connections that I had made with more people there, and then the work that I got to do with the Sherpa Foundation. We raised like about almost $1 million for earthquake relief and rebuilt like 150 homes in the Khumbu right after that, and I'm still on their board.
Okay.
Which is based in the Vail Valley, but through that I was able to grow my partnerships for guiding that I do there now.
Yeah.
And some of the guys that I hire and work with for our logistics for our trekking and for climbing were born through that tragedy, actually.
Yeah.
And so just, yeah, the camaraderie that was, you know, that occurred from people bonding together, not just right after the earthquake, but in the months following it to support the communities there. And so just a combination of all those like memories.
Yeah.
Just makes me go back there. I mean, that's
Oh,
why I've
Nepal's
created-
amazing. Like anybody who's
Created-
been
Yeah.
to Nepal, they want to
Yeah.
go back.
Created my company to do work there, not just to trek, but to do humanitarian efforts.
Yeah.
I'm working with another group that wants to go and do some medical missions work there next spring. So we'll guide a group that is going to go in and do some medical stuff.
Oh, wow.
So just continue to grow those connections and do more versus just saying, well, I'm going to guide and take people in and take people
Yeah.
out. Like, what can we do to enhance the life there of the
Absolutely.
locals?
That's amazing.
Well, especially because, I mean, just the people, Buddhist and Hindu people, I mean, they're so kind, and they open up their homes, their families to you every time you go, and it is so nice to build those relationships and keep them going. And yeah, it is, every time you go back, it is almost like a family. Megan, how are you?
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, how's your kid? Yeah.
And then I also like realized like you don't need to have many things, right? So like
Right.
I try to pare down the duffels for our clients, but then like I've done it the last couple of times when I've trekked in and out. I've just carried my own backpack with one change of clothes and
Yeah.
realized that that's all I need. I actually
Yeah.
don't need a big duffel with all these extra things.
Yeah.
And except Jenga, we carry the Jenga and play it.
We got into Monopoly Deal.
Yeah.
Like I'd never played
that
Monopoly
game's
Deal
fun, too,
before, but
yeah.
that got to be fun.
Uh-huh.
It was pretty
Yeah.
competitive.
we started playing cribbage, which I'd never played before. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
It's just like
Cribbage
unplugging and doing
Yeah.
games like that and
Yeah.
like letting your devices go
Yeah.
is awesome too.
Then you get back here and you don't do any
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my best memory of Everest, which I know was not on purpose, but it still made me happy, is Mike came over with you and he started singing in our tent or whatever, and it was my birthday. So it was like, oh, he came
Yeah,
over and
that's
started
amazing.
like, so it's awesome
Yeah.
when people bring musical instruments and then share their talents, and it was a fun birthday. It was cool. Made me happy.
It's a great place to spend your birthday.
It was a great
Yeah.
place to spend
What
my
date
birthday.
is your birthday?
May 2nd.
Yeah, mine's May 12th. So.
I'm May 30th.
Okay.
Okay.
So last year I was in Kathmandu.
We're all
for
May,
mine, but
yeah.
Yeah. Taurus all the way through.
Gemini.
huh?
Very Gemini.
You are, really?
I think I have
Yeah,
8
May.
personalities, yes.
Got it.
My sister is too. Yeah, I guess like my favorite memory, you know, it was more, there's so many, I just goosebumps already, like there's so many amazing things but for me, it's really more like my personal journey and growth, and just being very aware of my deeper development always. And this whole journey that I'm on with like grit and trying to teach people to own their choices and make the most of themselves. But we all will struggle at some point. We all struggle with doubts or that inner child or different things. And one of the most amazing things that happened to me was, it was a little bit last year and this year, but those moments where you feel a little bit broken and you're being aware of it, and you have that choice, that very moment, to pick yourself back up. And it was so profound to me of you could turn around at any moment, but I'm going to choose to take another step forward, and finally being, I guess, good enough for myself. Look, I'm successful at my job, I'm doing all these things, but we all still have that little nook and cranny of doubt or whatever it is. And for the first time in my life, I truly was good enough for myself. And so for me, like so much of my message is trying to get people to reach that without actually having to climb Everest. And what it was is that I was looking at doing Lhotse as well. And there's so much pressure, like, well, other people are doing it, and maybe I should do it. Not many women have done it. And I realized to myself, it's going to be another like 20 grand. And I have other stuff that I need to go climb. And I was like, really, Megan? Is just climbing Everest not good enough? You have to do that as well? And I was like, what is wrong with me? And so, yeah, I just had this amazing moment. I just was in my tent by myself, just like crying, like tears of joy. And I'm like, I'm good enough.
It is amazing, like how
stuck with
emotional
me.
the journey is for people.
Oh, it's so wonderful. It's so cathartic. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It's so amazing. And to bond with others, to go through it together. And I mean,
Our Everest team was like I came in late, and we still all bonded. Right? I still keep in touch with the people on the team.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so fun, and everybody's in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's cool about the whole journey of 7 summits or any list of mountains. And I think that's more how I got into the climbing. I love climbing up peaks and stuff, but when I started the 7 summits, or even just going to different parts of the world to climb, I was a poor grad student because I was in grad school forever, and I worked like 3 jobs and then put like all the money I had into like going and traveling to these places. But my goal was always climb the mountain as fast as I could, because then I could stay and do a reward of like a week going to somewhere. Even Kilimanjaro, like, okay, climb, go do a safari, go to Zanzibar.
Yes.
Or anywhere else, like in Nepal, you can travel to other parts of the country, or Indonesia, went back to Bali after Karstens and spent 5 days there doing yoga retreat and going to Nusa Lembongan and going touring all over different islands. So yeah, it's like the culture of these other places. I love to climb as quickly as possible to then go somewhere nearby to just take in the whole culture.
Wait, so you have family to get back to. So I was gonna say
how do you balance that? That's amazing.
Because you can't you could be like, after we climbed, and we were done earlier, but a whole bunch of us decided like we're staying in Kathmandu for 5 days to chill out and like let it all sink in and talk about it with each other before we go back to our family and our friends. But
my chill out is on the plane. My chill out's on the
Exactly.
plane home. But at the same time, I can do a lot of acclimatizing here. Right? So I have the tent that I sleep in so that I can go to the adventures later. And then I try to put the kids in activities. So like when I was at K2 this summer, they were in camp for the entire time. I actually beat them home by a week. And then it gave me a week to decompress, get organized here, and then be excited for them. Because it's harder for me when I'm the one that's gone and they're just here. Yeah. It's easier for me when everybody's gone doing something. Yeah. And then we all come back and share our stories. But it also helps me, when you have limited time and I know that I'm going to be gone, then I'm much more present here versus I think I can sometimes take it for granted. I've been here for a while and I'm just like, kids, parenting, blah. But it works. It all works.
How's your balance with that? And like, let's say your kids go to school, they're talking to the other kids that have, let's say, parents that are kind of more normal, and you're out doing adventures. And they come home and they realize that what you're doing is pretty extraordinary and different. Do they feel like you being gone is a bad thing, or do they just now they're used to it? They realize this is what mom does.
Yeah, I think what really set my whole adventure off right is when I was going to go climb Everest. That was going to be the longest I'd ever be away from home, like ever, by weeks. So I went to the school and I said, hey, listen, I'm going to go climb Mount Everest. I've never been gone this long. Can you keep an extra eye on my kids? I'm like, I want you to know because they might be behaving differently. And then the school said, well, let's involve the kids. So we set up this whole thing called like, what's your Everest? They set goals and they had little hikers in the hallway. And then I went into each of the classrooms and talked about it. And then when I was at Everest, I Zoom called into their classrooms. Yeah. Right? And so then they would ask me, like, where'd you go to the bathroom? What are you eating? All kid questions.
All the famous questions.
The famous questions,
they
right?
Loved that.
They loved it. And so then when I summited, the whole school was so excited. So cool. And so then when you get everybody on board and supporting and excited, like my kids felt cool. Like my mom's climbing Everest and everybody thinks it's awesome. The newspaper interviewed us. Actually, we got an award from the governor. Nice. And so because the community was so supportive, they're like, yeah, my mom's doing cool things and this is what it takes. And we have big conversations at home about doing hard things. Like we
Nice.
do hard things to make cool things happen.
Well, I think that's the way life should be lived because, I mean, this is like what I speak about sometimes too. It's like flipping that switch in people's mindset about difficult things and even just about like thinking about, you know, most people go to work and do certain things in their lives or put certain goals off or want to fall back on the wrong thing instead of focusing on what is right and what's good, you know? And so just like flipping that switch is,
Well, even you with the Everest
really
story,
important and focused,
right? Like you can focus on all the tragedy that happened with that earthquake, or you can look at that same thing and say, like, look where the helpers showed up, or look what all the positive that came out of that too. And so in any circumstance, and that's just the lesson of like, hey, we can be negative about it, we can be positive.
It is a choice. We have a choice every single day. I choose to rise, and like that is the big thing because life is constant struggle and pain and challenge. And so that's, I think I read like Art of Happiness, Dalai Lama, and that was his whole thing. Is like the problem with Westerners, you spend so much energy of why'd this happen to me, instead of just dealing with the fact, accepting right away, crap happens.
Or
Use your
saying
energy.
like, well, it's going to be hard, right? Like you could look at your situation too. You have 7 children. That's unbelievable. And I think most people would say like, oh my gosh, being a parent is going to be so hard, so impossible. And I've had friends that have had kids and they've been like, oh my gosh, my life's so different now, or it's over, it's this. And I'm like, wait a minute, you don't even have to say that. And it sounds like somebody like you is actually taking that step. I mean, you are taking that step and saying like, well, no, life's amazing, and I have these 7 children, and I'm crushing life, and I'm doing this, and it could be hard, but it's actually not. I'm like seeing it out differently, right? Like flipping the mindset really is what it's about.
And I have to tell you, we've become friends. We've had these conversations. I appreciate so much what you're doing for women. I do not have kids, but so many of my friends have children, and the mom shaming they get for going and reaching their goals, where there are fathers that go and do this all the time. I think it's incredible to be showing that you can still raise amazing, healthy children and the mother go and do these things. And it's a great example for women everywhere of what you're doing as well.
No, it's lucky. And for me, I just look at it and I think if I was my daughter, how would I want my daughter's life to be? I want her to do what inspires her. Because if I'm inspired and you're hanging out with me, you're going to be inspired.
Correct.
If I'm miserable and like I have to put my life on hold, or it bleeds into everything you do.
Yeah.
So you really have to be conscientious of how I show up energetically and what I want for myself, because it gives them permission to do the same thing.
Yeah. And we're all lucky. We live in
A playground.
areas where this is the norm. We have so many Everest climbers, in the Park City, the Vail, and now I split time now between Vail and then Southern California. I'll tell you what, these conversations in Southern California, not the same. Like in Vail, who hasn't climbed Kilimanjaro? I mean, please. Like everyone's out. And like, oh yeah, it's just a normal thing. Hey, we're gonna go hut-to-hut trip. Wanna go? Bring your 5 dogs. We all have the gear. And so it is more normalized. It is a more normal thing to have these conversations. But then, I mean, you give talks all over where people are like, I can't even go up like the 5
like I live
flights
in
of
Nebraska.
stairs. Yeah.
And but still, then it comes back to
inspiring.
surrounding yourself with people that are gonna enhance your life versus not in any situation, right? I mean, that's why like if you go out to Nebraska or Iowa, like you have a lot of really great football and basketball players and sports people, and they can do the same thing. They
That's
can
what their
rally
land
themselves
calls
around
for.
around a sport or around an activity that gives them joy.
But an opportunity
inspires
to
them,
share your story and inspire them to what they, never thought possible. Even, I mean, because you have to think back to when we started, and people reach out now like, I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro. I never ever want to sound like, oh, piece of cake. But because they're so excited, we all started there. We all started there at some point. And even though it's kind of normalized for us, man, what a great opportunity to go and speak to people to help inspire them to even climb, a 14er.
Or like, not even physical mountains.
To climb a 5 or to do a 5K,
right? Like, what is your thing what's your Everest? Because it doesn't have to be Everest.
Totally,
Further your education.
And try something new is the big thing too. That's how I got into guiding and coaching too. It was like, well, I just didn't find as much joy as much as doing my own thing all the time.
Yeah.
So it was, how can we mentor other people and help them climb their own mountains in their own projects and things like that.
And that's
So.
and really it's coaching, like you said, the switch. And to me, it's
Yeah.
the choice
Mm-hmm.
to be able to click through and push through that fear and push through that doubt, just to do it. And the more you do it, and the more you do it, the better you get. And that's what you're coaching people on, is to figure that out for themselves. Yeah.
Do you do private coaching clients too?
Oh yeah. We have a roster about 15 or 20 now.
Wow.
And so my business partner does most of the remote training.
Okay.
So it's somewhat modeled behind, like, let's say Carmichael training systems. Those people that do that are more like bikers and runners, but we do basically adventure coaching, is what we call it. And it's anything ranging from you hire me for a one-on-one, or we add like monthly training where it's like, okay, let's say you live in LA and you're training for Kilimanjaro. And you've never done anything before. Well, we can train you based on what your schedule is, if you like to do swimming, biking, hiking, and then we mix in the fitness training for climbing, and then we do I'll do either emails or calls depending on the level of service, and that's like the consulting on okay, you can either hire me to guide you on Kili, or you might be going with another company. Great, no big deal, but you can call me anytime to discuss details on setting up your logistics, basically coaching you through the whole process. Everything ranging from gear.
Yeah, gear's a
nutrition,
thing, right?
Gear, nutrition, and even just like the ins and outs of what's going to happen on the expedition, what to expect. And so we do like
that's
monthly
good.
packages that are tied to the coaching. Yeah,
Oh, I like that.
I mean, different people. Like I just had a client I did a phone call with yesterday that she went and did Grand Paradiso. Was going to do Mont Blanc, but they closed it this season, and then she got up on the Matterhorn. So chatted, and then she's heading to Pico de Orizaba next. But at some point, we'll probably hire me to take her on Aconcagua, take her on Manistee, take her up Everest.
Is
So it's
Everest
kinda
your
that
favorite
track,
to
so-
take people on? Or what's your
I don't
favorite?
know. I mean, it's become, I've done 2 one-on-ones now and got
Yeah.
them both to the summit. So I don't know if I'd call it my favorite, but it's cool because you're like, wow, I get to literally, this is a dream job on the highest
Yeah,
mountain in the
that's your
world. And I'm like,
job.
someone's hiring me for, a 6-figure salary to take them up the highest mountain in the world. And I can do it. I'm actually doing it. 10 years ago when I first climbed Everest on my own, I never dreamed I'd be doing that. But there's a market for that kind of
There is.
thing now,
Yeah.
and very few guys do it. I mean, Kenton Cool has done it a lot, and I'm grateful to have done it twice now, and I don't have an answer for how many more times I will do it, but I think I prefer that rather than taking a team of 12 people. I just feel like that's a lot more risk, someone like Garrett Madison, wow, God bless him,
I know. He does a good
and
job.
there's a lot
at
of
it too.
other guys that do that, and not to say, even though I had Mike that year, I oversaw Colin and Jenna's logistics too. They didn't need me to guide them by any means because Colin had already summited in the past, but I got to oversee that for the operations. So I think if I have competent amount of a crew, like I'm doing for Aconcagua this season with 5 clients, that could be taken to Everest at some point. I'd probably be willing to run a trip like that, but for now, the bigger ones, I think one-on-one's my style. Yeah, for sure. So, and even running smaller trips with groups of 3 to 5 is really fun.
Yeah.
Like the hut trips or
Yeah.
Aconcagua or Ecuador volcanoes or Denali or any of these mountains that are smaller. You can do it with a small
Have you
group.
done the Mexican volcanoes?
So I have, yeah.
I want to do them
Yeah,
so bad.
Pico, Popo. I did Popo before they closed it in 2009.
Okay.
They don't let people go up Popo anymore because it's active.
Yeah.
But there's Ixta and Pico, done those 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is there a
so I've
season
guided
for
For
those?
sure. I would say the best is, December through March.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's really enjoyable, and I have great connections down there and everything. So yeah, if you guys want to go, let me know.
Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
We can go down and have a really
It's
fun
on my
trip.
list
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
go to some volcanoes,
Yeah,
go to
they're
the
relatively
beach.
easy to
There's
do.
gonna be a little tequila
And
involved.
the Mexican food is amazing.
Oh,
and
lovely.
I have 2 great friends in Mexico City that help me with logistics for it, so it's really easy. And it's high. I mean, 18.5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's
So-
awesome. That'd be so much. That would be
Yeah.
really fun to go do.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be on the list.
Mountains, volcanoes, and peaks.
I know.
All
and,
of 'em.
And then the beach.
Yeah,
Beach time.
and the beach
Little
afterwards.
beach time afterwards.
It's called balance. It's called balance.
Oh.
So perfect.
Are you guys excited for fall?
Yeah,
Leaves
so
are
we're
just starting to tinge up in Vale, and here
that's
I
true.
couldn't tell today
Leaves,
because of the rain.
leaves are gonna change.
But-
I like getting chilly. I mean, that is the perfect weather to be training in, and then
Yes.
then we can have snow and ice again, which I just absolutely love. And yeah, so I'll be in Vale this winter training, and then hopefully North Pole in the spring. If we figure out how to open it up.
It will open.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for you.
I hope so.
So when you are training people, because a lot of people do not live in mountain towns, and even though it's nice to be out hiking as much as possible because you want it to match the actual terrain that you're going to be doing, step up, Stairmaster, Versaclimber, like treadmill at an angle, like what are you recommending?
I mean, incline stuff, steps, stadium stairs, and then finding hills. I mean, even if you're like in Iowa, even like in certain places, you can find hills anywhere pretty much. Maybe unless you're in Florida, but even there, I mean, you could. Yeah, I mean, Florida's probably the only spot.
Well, you
but
could
I don't
do
really have
at
any
least you can do
clients
the
from Florida right
parking
now.
garage.
Yeah, you could always
Yeah.
find flights of stairs. So yeah, I mean, we recommend a lot of those things. And then what I love about my business partner is he's got that background of ultra running. He was a pro triathlete.
He trained you for an
And
ultra
stuff,
run too,
so-
right?
He helped a little bit, yeah, along with my girlfriend. So that was like really cool because she's an ultra runner and she crushes it. I mean, she got second place at Ouray 50. She's done Western States, UTMB, Leadville, all these big races. And so, you know, when I went to the ultra, I had that in my back pocket as well. It was like
Yeah.
her guidance and her like, come on, let's go. And like she could have podiumed in the Never Summer Ultra that I did, and she stayed with me the last 25 miles.
That's amazing.
You know,
Will you do it again?
So
Was it addicting?
probably not Never Summer, but it's ironic and funny because my joke with her was, "Oh, you did Western, like it's not that big of a deal, like it's easy." And I was like, I could do Western, and she's like, well, you have to qualify. And I was like, no, I'll just do Never Summer, and then yeah, that'll make me qualify. But I didn't realize you had to qualify, and so I just said, well, fine. I signed up on a whim for Never Summer, and she just laughed at me. And I'm like, fine, you're laughing at me, but I'm gonna do it. And then I went and did it, and then I got done, and then I go, well, now I qualify for Western. And she just laughed at me, and I said, well, but I guess now I have to draw in. You have to draw in. It's
Okay.
a 1 in 20,000 chance
What?
to get in to Western. Yeah, because it's so popular now.
Boo.
Yeah,
So,
but 1 in
and-
20,000.
Yeah, because you get one ticket, and all these people apply from their qualifying races.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know, there's a chance. So if I get in, I'll do it. If I don't, I'll just qualify again next year. But that being said, I've always had the ability to move across mountains fast. I mean, last week I did 8 of the peaks on what's called Nolan's 14.
Okay.
As part of some scouting for like next summer, I'm going to go and do the Nolan's 14, which is the 14 peaks of the Swatch Range near Buena Vista. And you go up and over and you can chain all of them.
Yeah.
So you start on Massive, you go Massive, Elbert, La Plata, Huron, Missouri, Oxford, Belford, Harvard, Columbia, Yale, Princeton, Antero, Tabawatch, and Chavano in the finish.
Oh, wow. How many days is that?
You go north to south or south to north. South to north is actually easier than north to south. So I did north to south and I did 8 of the peaks. But then 2 weeks prior, I scouted the bottom half of the whole route too. And then over the years, since I've climbed those mountains so many times and skied down them and stuff like that, I know a lot of the intricacies of the connectors for different areas where you bushwhack and stuff. So anyway, you have to finish it in under 60 hours for it to count.
Oh,
It's like one
wow.
of those things in the hiking community or ultra community.
So
And
the Hard Rock 100's butt.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
not an actual race, like a formal race, but it's you go out and you do Nolan's 14, and it's anywhere from 88 to 100 miles, depending on how you enchain the peaks and how you know the routes. One of my friends, Andrea Sansone, her and her boyfriend, Andrew Hamilton, he's famous for, he did all the 14ers in 9 days.
Oh, wow.
And chaining peaks and having a crew. But Andrea went out and he supported her, and she went in south to north just the other day and did the brand new women's record, 46 hours. Yeah, and
Awesome.
these people don't sleep though, and
No.
that's tough for someone like me. Like my strategy is, and we went and kind of tested it out by doing 8 peaks. I went and did the first 4 and had a camp set up and slept for 3 hours, and then continued and did 8 more. And then I stopped because my timing was pretty good. And then the south portion I've already scouted. So probably next summer I'll put together the project and do the whole thing and try to do like 50 hours. But I was on about a 55-hour pace.
Wow.
So, and I think I can go a little faster. So we'll see with some training. But stuff like that is like really appealing to me. Is like not necessarily doing a real ultra race.
Yeah.
Those are fun because that was my first ultra, but trying something new. But then this Nolan's or these other sort of high ridge traverses is really fun because it's FKT style and it's kind of out there, and you're not really racing against anyone else. You're just racing against yourself and what you're capable of doing.
And you're putting
it's
together
really
the whole
appealing.
project, which is kind of fun to see
Yeah,
the evolution of it.
Totally, and it's so much fun. And
It does sound fun, actually. Yeah.
so I've done that over the years with a lot of my projects. I mean, my Sleeping on the Summits was 58 peaks in 95 days, all in one summer, spending the night on every summit. Then I followed that up with the volcanoes, skiing 20 volcanoes in 30 days in the Pacific Northwest. And then I went and did a wacky project where I went back to the 14ers again and skied all 58 in 160 days. And that allowed me to write a ski guidebook that wasn't just 14ers, but yeah, it's just creating these projects outside that inspire others, but that it's nice because there technically aren't any rules in the outdoors. Like we can go out and create our own guidelines and go for them and do them because they're fun and challenging and they change your whole world. Right?
1,000%. I love the flexibility of it all.
You know, so whether it's Colorado 14ers,
I don't know
7 summits, 7-second summits. See, like we have different projects, 7 summits,
Or,
Grand Slam.
You know.
So like it's limitless, right?
And
you can do
it's
anything you
also,
want.
you can build it in, like, I'm feeling like lazy now comparing to hear that. But,
I'm
you
like,
know, but I work,
I skied at the
50, 60
resort.
hours a week at a, as an engineer, regular, like a day job too. But, and that's the great thing too, is that you have kids, you have, at the university you're at, another job, you can also fit the outdoors in to whatever you have available or make the time for it. And it's there for you. And it doesn't judge you, and it's just there when you want it.
Yeah, and it humbles
have
you
fun.
and it smacks you down.
It
too.
reminds you that
will.
you're
Yeah,
just
it
a
reminds you
person.
that you're so insignificant. That's what I love the most about doing these mountain adventures. It's just like that the mountains don't care who you are, what your background is, who you're
Male or
sponsored
female, how many
Yeah.
Instagram followers,
They just
it
humble
doesn't
you.
give a crap.
They just humble you, So
You just have to show up.
You gotta show up and have a good attitude.
Have fun with it. But yeah. Well, thank you guys for sitting around and talking today. It was so fun to talk about. And
Yeah.
I could talk about it all day
I
long.
know. Hopefully we'll be on one together soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. All right. Well, I hope the listeners had fun listening about all of our mountain talk today. And we'll see you soon.